Millionaire caught Maid studying in the middle of the night. His action left everyone shocked.
Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
In the stillness of the luxurious Walker estate, the grandfather clock in the main hall struck twice with a dry, solemn tone. 2 in the morning. Andrew Walker turned over, exhaled deeply, then quietly pushed aside the thick blanket and got out of bed. His expensive fur slippers brushed against the gleaming hardwood floor. He walked down to the kitchen, intending to make himself a cup of peppermint tea as he usually did when he couldn't sleep. His hand reached for the kettle when a soft sound came from the left hallway. It sounded like someone flipping through the pages of a book. Andrew frowned. Who would still be awake at this hour? No staff member was allowed to roam around the estate after 10 p.m. alert. He followed the sound toward the laundry room, a place used only during the day by the staff. The door was ajar, faint white light spilling out from within. He pushed the door open. In front of him was a young woman, curled up on a wooden chair next to the towel cabinet. Her old, thin sweater was hardly enough to keep her warm. In front of her was a thick book, Principles of Economics. She was jotting something into a notebook. "Isabel," he said sternly, his brows furrowing in irritation. The girl jumped, standing up quickly, her hand trembling and causing her pen to drop to the floor. "Mr. Walker. I'm sorry, I didn't think anyone would be awake. What are you doing here at this hour?" His voice was ice cold. I finished all my room cleaning tasks, so I was trying to read a bit during my break." Andrew stepped inside, his eyes quickly scanning the book, the pen, the notebook, and then stopping at the steaming cup of tea next to her. "You're using my appliances?" "A cup of tea from the kitchen's coffee machine." "I'm sorry. Lydia gave me permission to use it, just to keep warm. I didn't mean any harm." "You think this is a library?" Andrew cut her off. "You're here to work as a maid, not to be a student. You should choose one, study or work. Don't try to juggle both and end up doing neither well." Isabel's face flushed red. She bowed her head, trying to keep her voice gentle. "Sir, I only study during my break time. I never let it interfere with my work." "So you're saying I'm wrong?" Silence. Out in the hallway, Lydia, the kitchen assistant, froze when she saw her boss standing in the laundry room. She was about to step away when Andrew called her back. "Lydia. Do you know what Isabel is doing right now?" I thought she was just reading a little, sir." "And you gave her permission?" Lydia stammered, unable to continue. Isabel looked at her with a mix of gratitude and sorrow, but Andrew waved his hand. "Both of you, go rest. Isabel, you don't need to come in tomorrow. I'll take care of this." Isabel wanted to say something, but her throat tightened. She bowed silently, tears welling in her eyes. The next morning, pale sunlight filtered through the curtains of the living room where staff meetings were usually held. Laura Campbell, the estate's chief manager, was already there in a dark purple office dress, her hair neatly tied up. She smiled as Andrew entered. "Good morning, Mr. Walker. I've arranged everything as you requested. Gather all the staff. I have an announcement." 5 minutes later, 12 people stood in a row in front of Andrew, from kitchen staff and gardeners to drivers. Isabel stood at the end of the line, hugging an old scarf, her face pale from lack of sleep. "Today, I'm officially terminating the contract of Ms. Isabel Reyes," Andrew stated plainly. The staff murmured among themselves. Isabel stood frozen. Laura spoke up. "Sir, that's a very wise decision. I caught her using the office printer to print school documents. And once, I even saw her reading during her lunch break, trying to act all virtuous to gain sympathy." "That's not true," Isabel exclaimed, her eyes red. "I never used the printer. I only read during my lunch break." "You know that's true. You dare contradict your manager?" Laura snapped. "You think you're special? Everyone here works to earn a living, not to chase dreams. Andrew cut in, I don't keep people who don't know their place. Isabel, you're to leave the estate today. No final paycheck. No. No paycheck. You can sue if you'd like. But I have enough evidence that you broke the rules. Isabel couldn't speak. She looked around, hoping someone would speak up for her, but everyone kept their heads down. Lydia avoided her gaze. Carlos, the gardener, turned his face away. Only one person let out a soft sigh, Victor, Andrew's driver of 10 years. He shook his head slightly but said nothing. That night, Isabel quietly packed her belongings. A few old textbooks, a thin jacket, and a small teddy bear her mother had given her when she was 8. Every step down the cold hallway felt like dragging her humiliation behind her. Lydia brought over a small box of sandwiches and whispered. I'm sorry, Isabel. I was a coward. I was afraid of being fired, but I know you did nothing wrong. It's okay, Isabel replied softly. I'm just sad they didn't believe me. Outside, the cold was biting. Isabel pulled her suitcase toward the estate gate. Snow had started to fall. From the 3rd floor, Laura peeked out the window, wine glass in hand, smirking as she watched the slender figure walking away through the iron gate. A maid dreaming of college? Ridiculous. In the shadows, Victor stood behind his car, watching Isabel. He sighed and pulled out his phone to text someone. Something's wrong. Andrew trusts Laura too much. Needs more observation. Isabel rolled her suitcase down the deserted sidewalk in the freezing Los Angeles night. Her thin coat wasn't enough to keep her frail body from shivering. The snow was falling heavier now, layering her tangled hair with a soft white sheet. A few taxis drove by, none of them stopping. It was 1 a.m, and the city felt like it had turned its back on her. She dialed Anna, a former classmate, but only got voicemail. She exhaled a puff of cold breath and bowed her head, continuing her walk. Around 3 a.m., Isabel stopped in front of a cheap motel in Boyle Heights. The landlady, Margaret, a woman in her 60s and once a friend of Isabel's mother, opened the door, light spilling into the narrow, damp hallway. Heavens, Isabel! What are you doing here at this hour? Why are you soaking wet? I'm sorry. I got fired. That damn Mr. Walker again. If your mom were alive, she'd slap him. Isabel tried to smile, but tears spilled down uncontrollably. The next morning, social media was shaken by a photo, Isabel studying next to a stack of books in the laundry room. Someone likely on Laura's orders had uploaded it with a mocking caption. When you hire a maid but get a self-declared college student. At first, many people were touched. Catherine_Lopez, a young woman squeezing in study time during her break. Truly moving. Edward_Los Angeles, I used to be a poor student too. I get it. She did nothing wrong. But just a few hours later, the tide shifted as fake accounts began posting criticisms of Isabel. Luxury Homes LA, a maid trying to sneak in college study. Not professional. Martha_20, if she were my employee, I'd fire her too. Work time is for work. Ronnie_Fernandez, so fake. Just trying to play the noble girl act. Not buying it. Messages started flooding Isabel's account, most of them insults and verbal abuse. Some even used photos of her late mother, once a respected teacher, to mock her. Just like her mom. Dreamy and useless. At a small diner called Las Olas Café on the corner of San Vicente Boulevard, Isabel applied for a temporary waitress job. The owner, Peter Dawson, a portly man in his 50s constantly chewing gum, looked at her resume. You used to work at the Walker estate, he asked. Yes, but I was misunderstood. I didn't do anything wrong. Peter nodded slowly. All right, I'm short on staff. I need someone to clean up. Low pay though. $20 a shift. I'll take it. I just need work. On her first shift, Isabel washed over 100 plates. Her hands turned red and raw from the cold water and detergent, but she didn't complain. Only when she sat down on a plastic chair in the kitchen corner, holding her rumbling stomach, did she quietly whisper to herself. If I can just hang in a little longer, it'll be okay. A week later, Isabel went to the University of Los Angeles to resubmit her application for the finance program, the one she had dreamed of since she was 16. The admissions office was packed, and she had to wait almost 2 hours for her turn. The receptionist, a short-haired woman named Elena Ross, glanced through the application and sighed. We can't process this without proof of legal residence. You don't have a current lease or official address registration, correct? I'm staying with a friend. Can I submit that later? I'm sorry. Rules are rules. And the application fee is $200. Isabel bit her lip. I don't have enough right now. I'm working part-time. Can I pay a week late? We don't hold incomplete applications. If you can't finalize it this round, you'll have to wait until the next term. She stepped out of the building, still clutching her file folder tightly. Around her, students chatted and laughed, while she stood frozen in the middle of the campus courtyard, heart sinking into an endless void. That afternoon, Isabel tried her luck at a small bookstore called Chapters and Coffee Bookstore, well known among college students. The owner, Ms. Mandy Ruiz, was in her 70s, thin but with sharp eyes. You once won the national math contest. Is that true? She asked after reading Isabel's resume. Yes, ma'am, when I was 16. But now you look like a starving child. Isabel lowered her head slightly, her thin hands clasping together. I'm sorry, dear. I can't take on more staff. The shop is small. Isabel still smiled. I understand. Thank you for reviewing my resume. That night, in her shabby rented room, Isabel sat gasping for air after a 10-hour shift. She skipped dinner, drank some warm water, and tried to study a few more pages. But her vision began to blur. Around midnight, while washing dishes at Las Olas Cafe, her hands started to tremble, and her vision swirled. Peter was counting money at the register when... Crash! A plate shattered on the floor. Isabel collapsed. A cook shouted, "Oh my God! Call an ambulance, quick!" At St. Peter General Hospital, a resident physician named James Mitchell checked the blood pressure of the young woman who'd just been admitted to the recovery room. He frowned. Severe malnutrition, hypoglycemia. She probably hasn't eaten properly in days. Isabel woke up at 3 a.m., eyes blinking up at the bright fluorescent light on the stark white ceiling. Her head throbbed like a hammer blow. Head nurse Rose Aguilar arrived with her chart. You don't have health insurance. You'll need to be discharged by tomorrow. Isabel nodded. I'll leave, thank you all for saving me. News of Isabel fainting began to spread. Some continued to mock her. Daniel_Mora, playing the brave girl act to fish for pity. Excellent performance. Richard Brooks, a maid dreaming of college, now fainting from hunger. Brought it on herself. Public opinion was split, but criticism was starting to drown out sympathy. Isabel no longer used social media. Every time she opened her phone, dozens of anonymous messages poured in. Go back to scrubbing dishes. Ungrateful brat. Still have the nerve to cry. Meanwhile, Laura Campbell was enjoying her victory. After Isabel left, her power in the Walker estate grew. One morning, Andrew gathered all the staff. I'm officially appointing Laura as my personal assistant. She's proven her loyalty and vision. Applause followed, though it seemed more out of fear than joy. Victor, standing beside Andrew, kept a cold, unreadable expression. After the group dispersed, he quietly approached Laura. Congratulations. But don't forget who helped you filter out that dreamy girl. Laura smirked. I haven't forgotten. And you be careful too. Mr. Walker's been unpredictable lately. Day after day passed, and Isabel lived like a shadow in her damp room in MacArthur Park. The walls were moldy, the ceiling leaked, but it was the only place she could rest without being thrown out. Mrs. Margaret occasionally brought her a bowl of hot soup, but it couldn't make up for the bitterness eating away at Isabel's spirit. After every shift at Las Olas Cafe, Isabel would curl up with her phone, scanning the news. And that morning, she froze. The secret photo from the laundry room was circulating again, this time in an online article. Housemaid or opportunist? The headline from LA Weekly screamed. Underneath were hundreds of comments, growing increasingly cruel. If my maid did this, I'd fire her on the spot. She's just playing victim to get sympathy. Taking photos of herself studying so she can go viral. Pathetic. Isabel tapped on the profile of one of the people insulting her and was stunned to see it was Lucy Bennett, her old high school classmate. The same girl who once copied Isabel's homework, who begged for tutoring before the college entrance exams. She tapped Lucy's comment. I went to school with her. Fake since day one. Pretended to be hardworking, but she's manipulative. Isabel's hands trembled. Her throat tightened. She tried calling Lucy but was blocked. She sent a message. Why would you do this? I never hurt you. No reply. That night, as Isabel carried a tray of dishes from table 6, she heard whispers. Hey, isn't that the girl from online? The one who got fired for secretly studying at the Walker estate? Thought she was smart. Turns out she just didn't know her place. Two well-dressed women in their 30s sat by the window, glancing at her and scoffing. Peter stepped out of the kitchen, catching the last part of their conversation, and whistled. Come on now. Let's not make this cafe the haven for infamous wannabes. Isabel forced a smile. I'll stay out of their way. Peter looked at her. I don't want trouble. This is a small place, and bad gossip spreads fast. You understand? Yes, sir. The next day, Isabel received a message on her phone. Hello, I'm Matthew Evans, a reporter from ABC 7 Los Angeles. I'd like to interview you about what happened at the Walker estate. Are you open to it? Isabel hesitated for a long time. Part of her wanted to defend herself, but another part feared her words would be twisted again. She declined. Thank you, but I don't want to talk to the media right now. Elsewhere in the city, in her luxury apartment, Laura Campbell watched the evening news on TV. The ABC 7 reporter said. The story of a maid fired for studying in a laundry room continues to spark debate. The Walker estate declined to comment. Laura turned off the TV, smirking, then looked down at the long-haired cat curled in her lap. Sometimes, saying nothing is the smartest move. Let the world speculate. The more rumors, the more I benefit. She sipped her wine, then picked up her phone to call someone. Luke, I need you to post a few more comments from alternate accounts. Aim them at that Isabel girl. A little each day. The voice on the other end replied, no problem. Send me the script. Back at the Walker estate, longtime driver Victor walked into Andrew's office after driving him home from a meeting. Do you have 5 minutes, sir? I have something to say. Andrew was flipping through his schedule. Go ahead, Victor. It's about Isabel Reyes. Andrew frowned. I thought that matter was closed. I don't think she did anything wrong. Do you have any evidence? Victor paused. Just a feeling. I've noticed how Laura handled things afterward, it didn't sit right. She changed everyone's schedules and even banned reading during break time. It's too extreme. Andrew didn't respond. He turned his chair to face the window. In the distance, snow was beginning to fall again. At Las Olas Cafe, a stranger walked in during a rainy night. He was an elderly man in a light brown suit, using a cane. Isabel was wiping down tables when the man spoke. "Do you have a cloth for my glasses? These old eyes got soaked in the rain." "I'll get one right away, sir." She brought over a soft cloth and a cup of hot tea. "You're not the owner?" "No, sir. Just working part-time at night." Isabel gave a faint smile. The man looked at her for a moment, then asked gently. "Where did you go to school?" "Santa Ana High School. I once won a national math award." The old man paused. "What's your name?" "Isabel Reyes, sir." His eyes lit up behind foggy glasses. "I'm John Harris. I used to be the assistant to Mrs. Alexandra Walker, Andrew Walker's mother." Isabel's eyes widened. Mrs. Walker was a renowned educator. "I've heard of her." John nodded. "You remind me of her. She used to say, 'Those who know how to learn, know how to change their fate.' Don't let the world take that away from you." Isabel was stunned. His words planted a new seed of hope in her weary heart. As he left the cafe, Mr. John accidentally dropped his wallet. Isabel ran after him to return it, even though a part of her knew that the money inside could feed her for a week. She didn't hesitate. "Sir. You dropped your wallet." John turned back, touched. "Thank you, Isabel. Today, you restored the faith of a very grumpy old man." That night, John opened his phone and dialed a familiar number. "Andrew, I just met a girl named Isabel Reyes. Do you remember that name?" "I haven't wanted to hear that name in a long time, John." "Well, I think you should. I just met her. She's not what the media says she is." Andrew fell silent. "Tell me more." "I saw the look of education in her eyes, the look your mother once held dear." Andrew was silent for a long time, then said quietly. "I'll have someone look into it." That night, for the first time in weeks, Isabel studied again. Though she had no desk, she spread her books across the floor, leaned her back against the wall, and held a cup of lukewarm tea in her hands. Social media was still full of cruel comments. But tonight, she no longer trembled. John's words echoed in her mind. "Those who know how to learn, know how to change their fate." She gripped her notebook tightly, looking out the window. Outside, snow continued falling, painting the night in pure white. The pale morning sunlight slipped through the tattered curtain. Isabel woke with a throbbing ache across her shoulders and neck. She had fallen asleep on the floor, her textbook still open on her lap. Her eyes were puffy, her lips dry. She got up silently, splashed cold water on her face, put on her faded jacket, and stepped out of her room. Today was the final deadline to resubmit her application to the University of Los Angeles. Though she had been rejected once, Isabel still clung to a sliver of hope. Mrs. Margaret pushed two $10 bills into her hand. "Take the bus, sweetheart. Don't walk. It's still freezing out." "Thank you. I'll pay you back soon." "Don't say that again. Just stay warm and stay strong." Isabel nodded, trying her best to smile. That morning, the University of Los Angeles buzzed like a beehive. New students lined up to complete enrollment, chatting, laughing, slinging their bags over their shoulders, documents neatly tucked into folders. Isabel stepped into the admissions office with worn-out shoes and an application folder patched with cheap tape. She took a deep breath and approached desk 4, where a clerk named Victor Roberts was on duty. "Hello. I'm Isabel Reyes. I'm here to update my college application." Victor looked up, eyes scanning her messy hair and threadbare coat. "Where's your file?" "Here. I submitted it once before but it was rejected due to lack of residence proof. I've tried to get a temporary confirmation from MacArthur Park." Isabel handed over a handwritten letter signed shakily by Mrs. Margaret. Victor frowned. "This letter isn't valid. It's handwritten, with no official stamp." "But I don't have a permanent address. I'm staying with someone. Rules are rules, young lady. You can submit the documents later, but today you must pay the full $200 enrollment fee. Do you have the receipt? Isabel bit her lip and pulled out her thin wallet. She counted each bill, 20, 40, 60, then paused at the folded $100 note. I only have $100. Can I pay the rest next week? Victor shook his head, his tone flat. Sorry. We don't accept incomplete payments. You can apply next term. Next term? Yes. In 6 months. He turned to the next student without looking back at her. Isabel stood frozen as the crowd moved forward. Her folder slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. Papers fluttered like scattered fragments of her dream, carried by the breeze, unnoticed by anyone. A blonde student nearby helped pick up the scattered sheets and asked gently. Are you okay? Isabel nodded without speaking. But her tears had already begun to fall. Silently, she walked out of the university hall, disappearing into the crowd as if she'd never existed. That afternoon, Isabel returned to Las Olas Cafe with red, swollen eyes and a staggering gait. Peter was doing inventory in the back when he looked up and snapped. You're 15 minutes late. The place is packed. Get in the kitchen. Isabel washed her hands, put on her apron, and dove into the dishes like a machine. The cold water numbed her fingers. Plates slipped from her hands. She felt nothing but the hollow ache inside. Each time customers laughed nearby, she winced as if their laughter was aimed at her. Around 7 p.m., Isabel sat down for a break after the dinner rush. She opened her notebook once filled with math formulas and lecture notes. But today's page was blank. Beside her, the clock read 7:10. She wrote. 7:10, I no longer have a university. The next day, Isabel tried to find work at a small used bookstore called Grandma's Bookshelf in Echo Park. The shop had green walls and the scent of old paper lingering in the air. The owner, Mr. Aaron Moore, was in his 60s, wore thick glasses, and had a perpetually stern expression. You've worked in a diner, washing dishes? He asked. Yes, sir. But I love books. I once won a National Math Award. I can organize books by genre, author, year of publication. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Sounds ideal. But do you have the strength? You look frail. The books here are heavy, and the customers picky. I can do anything. I just need a chance. I'm sorry. I can't hire someone with health concerns. This shop is too small to handle the risk. Isabel thanked him, bowed deeply, and left behind her only a glance of mixed pity and indifference. That evening, during her night shift at the cafe, she washed over 100 dishes. She slipped twice and once knocked over a bucket of water. Peter stormed over, voice sharp. What the hell are you doing? You want to get fined? I'm sorry. I'll clean it up right away. All you do is say sorry. You turning my cafe into a swamp? Isabel scrubbed the floor with her numb hands. When she finished, she collapsed in the kitchen corner, head buried in her knees. A moment later, Martin Sanders, a young kitchen worker just 22, sat beside her and handed her a sandwich. Here. Eat. You look like you're about to pass out. Isabel smiled gratefully and accepted it. Thanks, Martin. You're really kind. I've seen what people are saying about you online. I don't believe all of it. I don't know who to trust anymore. I only know. I tried. Martin looked at her for a while, then said quietly. Don't give up. If we lose our dreams, we're no better than dishwashing machines. Around midnight, after her shift, Isabel trudged back to her room. As she opened the door, the streetlight cast her shadow on the cracked wall. Inside, everything was as she left it, the thin blanket, the cold tea, the blank notebook. She sat on the floor and pulled an old wooden box from under the bed. She opened the lid and took out a stack of yellowed papers, photocopies of certificates, math awards, a letter of recommendation from her old principal and a handwritten letter from her mother. In her mind, she could hear her mother's voice reading the words. "My daughter, if you ever have a bad day, don't think it will last forever. Each day is just a page. Tomorrow could be different." Isabel cried for the first time in weeks. Silent sobs racked her body as she clutched the crumpled letter to her chest. At the Walker estate, Isabel's absence was quickly replaced by a colder, stricter atmosphere under Laura Campbell's command. The photo of the smiling girl from the cleaning team was now gone from the staff bulletin board. No one mentioned the name Isabel Reyes anymore, as if she had never existed. In the main office, Andrew Walker was signing documents when Laura walked in, wearing a plum pencil skirt and a fitted white blouse, holding an iPad. "I've reviewed all the new schedules. The shortened break policy is in effect starting today." Andrew didn't look up. "Any complaints from the staff?" "Some grumbling, but no one dares speak out. If they don't like it, they can resign." Laura smirked. "I don't want to replace everyone." "Yes, but efficiency must come first." Andrew nodded slightly. After a pause, he set down his pen. "I've decided to appoint you as my personal assistant. Starting next week, you'll handle all meeting schedules and internal financial distribution." Laura's eyes lit up. "Thank you, Mr. Walker. I won't disappoint you." Word of Laura's promotion spread quickly among management. In the staff break room, kitchen assistant Lydia quietly opened her locker when someone whispered near her ear. "Be careful. Every word you say can now be used against you." It was Claire Nunez, a longtime laundry worker, glancing toward the new camera installed in the corner of the room. Since Laura's promotion, surveillance in the estate had increased. Every hallway now had an electronic eye. Lydia sighed. "I haven't done anything wrong. But I don't trust anyone anymore." An internal staff meeting was held in the large dining room. All employees gathered. Laura stepped onto the small platform and spoke clearly. "Starting today, all reading during breaks is prohibited. That includes personal materials and academic content. We are here to work, not to self-develop." A few murmurs spread. Victor, the driver, raised his hand. "Excuse me, some people read newspapers or religious texts during lunch. Will that be banned too?" Laura looked him straight in the eye. "No exceptions. If you want to read, do it after work. If you can't accept that, you're free to resign." The room fell silent. A new staff member named Julian Carter muttered under his breath. "Is this a job or a prison?" Lydia nudged him with her foot. "Shut up. Want to get fired?" Laura patrolled the hallways, inspecting each room with dagger-sharp eyes. In the cleaning staff lounge, she caught Claire holding a copy of the Da Vinci Code. "What's that you're reading?" Laura barked. Just some light reading during my lunch break." "Where did you get the book?" "My daughter sent it to me." Laura snatched the book, flipped through a few pages, then tossed it on the table. "You don't need books to mop a floor. If I see it again, you're fired." Claire clenched her fists, trying to swallow her anger. In the driver's room, Victor sat reviewing the next day's route when Martin, the assistant driver and maintenance worker, walked in with a frustrated look. "They cut another half hour off our lunch break. What do they think we are, machines?" Victor poured hot tea and slid it over to him. "Watch your mouth. Laura has eyes and ears everywhere. It's just a shame about that girl Isabel. She got stomped on, while the wrong one got promoted." Victor nodded, his expression darkening. "I've been watching. Something's not right. Andrew's not usually so easy to manipulate." A week later, Laura held a private meeting with the HR department to cut probationary staff. "I don't think Julian is a good fit. He's slow to respond and asks too many questions. I suggest we end his contract early. The HR manager, Mrs. Eve Beltran, hesitated. But it's only his second week. He's adjusting well. There's no adjusting at the Walker estate. We need perfection. Eve shrugged. I'll carry out your directive. Julian was summoned that same afternoon. He looked confused. Did I do something wrong? Nothing serious. You're just not a good fit, Laura said flatly. While Laura tightened her grip on the staff, on the other side of the city, Isabel continued to struggle day by day at Las Olas Café. One evening, Martin arrived earlier than usual and saw her studying quietly in the kitchen corner. What are you studying? Corporate finance. I want to retake the entrance exam next term. Martin sat beside her and smiled softly. I studied business administration for a year. Need help? Isabel lit up. Really? Can you help me with this part here? They studied together until the clock struck 10 p.m. Peter walked in and frowned. Hey, I don't pay people to run a night school. Isabel stood up quickly. Sorry, we were just reviewing a few exercises. Next time, don't let customers see this. It's a diner, not a college. Meanwhile, at his private residence, Andrew Walker sat alone in his study. He had just finished an online meeting about a new resort project in Hawaii. On his desk lay a financial report from Laura, every number checked out, but something still didn't sit right. He picked up a glass of wine, settled into a leather armchair, and reached for the remote to turn on a finance report when his phone buzzed. John Harris calling. Andrew hesitated, then answered. John, it's late. What's going on? I saw Isabel Reyes again. The girl you fired over a month ago. Andrew gripped his glass tightly. I don't want to talk about that. Well, I have to. She returned my wallet without taking a cent. I may be old, but I'm not blind. That girl is not a liar. I had my reasons, John. And those reasons came from whom? Laura Campbell. Silence. I'm not forcing you to believe her. But if your mother were alive, she'd be disappointed. You chose power over justice. The call ended. Andrew sat still, his gaze growing darker. At the estate, Lydia was summoned to the manager's office. Laura sat behind her desk, eyes cold. You missed the supplementary meal prep for Mr. Walker. That's the second time this week. I had a migraine this morning. I asked Claire to cover me. Don't blame others. You'll take 3 days off. Unpaid. Laura signed the form without waiting. Lydia held the paper, hands trembling. You have the authority, but I didn't do anything wrong. Here, I decide what's wrong. That evening, Claire, Victor, and a few others sat in the garage, sipping tea in silence. We all know Laura's going too far, Claire sighed. But anyone who speaks up gets cut. Victor lowered his voice, eyes firm. It's time to keep close watch. Andrew's starting to have doubts. Maybe justice isn't dead yet. On Sunday morning, the sky over Los Angeles was the color of ash. A cold wind whipped through the streets, carrying old newspapers and bits of trash. Isabel finished her morning shift drenched in sweat, her hands shriveled from soaking in water. Peter waved her over from the register. Good work today. Here's your pay. He counted out old USD bills and stuffed them in an envelope. Next week you're covering Lily's afternoon shifts. She's on leave. Yes, thank you. I'll do my best. Peter nodded without another glance and walked into the kitchen. Isabel stepped into the street with her canvas tote filled with old books and a lunchbox prepared by Mrs. Margaret. By noon, she was sitting on a bench in the small park near MacArthur Park Station, reviewing her notes. She had read for barely 10 minutes when someone approached. An elderly man in his 70s, wearing a wool hat and a worn but clean coat. He used a cane and carried a weathered leather satchel over his shoulder. "May I sit here, young lady?" His voice was raspy but warm. "Yes, sir. Please do." He sat down, exhaling deeply. "It's been a while since I've seen a young person willing to study in the cold like this." Isabel smiled softly. "I don't have many options. My boarding house is too noisy. I don't qualify to reserve a library room." "What are you studying?" "Corporate finance." "But I haven't been accepted yet. I'm preparing to reapply." He nodded. "I'm Jack Allen. I used to be a secretary for Mrs. Alexandra Walker." Isabel froze, her notebook falling slightly from her hands. "Mrs. Walker. She was Andrew Walker's mother?" "Yes. She was a remarkable teacher and later ran a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. She believed that every pen can change a life. My mom used to tell me about her," Isabel whispered. "She was a teacher too. She died when I was 15. Mr. Jack looked at Isabel thoughtfully, his eyes solemn. "What's your name?" "Isabel Reyes." His eyes narrowed slightly, as if pained. "Reyes. I remember that name. You worked at the Walker estate, didn't you?" Isabel nodded, but looked down. I did. I was fired over a misunderstanding. I'd rather not talk about it." Mr. Jack was quiet for a while. Then he pulled an old leather wallet from his bag, placed it on the bench, and stood up with his cane. "I'm old, and my memory isn't what it used to be. Maybe I'm mistaken. Still, talking to you made me feel young again. Thank you, for not looking at me like I'm a liar." He smiled and quietly walked away. A few minutes later, Isabel packed her books, ready to return home, when she noticed something on the bench. The wallet. Startled, she ran in the direction the old man had gone, but he was already out of sight past the bus stop. Without hesitation, she opened the wallet to check. Inside were ID papers, an old family photo, and over $300 in cash. She held the wallet in her hands, frozen. The money was enough to cover her college application next week. A voice echoed in her mind. "You won't get another chance." But then her mother's voice rang louder and clearer. "Daughter, some things, once lost, can never be reclaimed like your conscience." Isabel stuffed the wallet into her bag and hurried to ask for the nearest bus stop. Nearly 30 minutes later, she found the old man at a post office nearby. Mr. Jack was fumbling at the ID counter. "Sir. You dropped your wallet." Isabel called out. He turned, stunned. You really came back." "I couldn't keep something that isn't mine." He took the wallet, peeked inside, then looked up, eyes shining. "There are very few people like you. And people like you shouldn't live in the shadows." Isabel smiled. "I think I'm still learning how to keep going." Mr. Jack nodded and, after a long pause, said, "I'll tell Andrew about this." That afternoon, at the Walker estate, Andrew was reviewing financial documents when the landline rang. "Hello. Andrew, I just saw Isabel Reyes," said Mr. Jack. "She returned my wallet without taking a cent. And I think you need to hear about it." Andrew froze. A heavy silence filled the line. "I believe she used her work hours to study." "You think that because you only heard from Laura. But I saw that girl emaciated, sitting in the cold, studying without complaint. She reminded me of your mother." Andrew didn't respond. Mr. Jack continued, more gently now. "If you still trust me even a little, watch the security footage from that night. See it for yourself." That evening, Andrew went to the estate's security control room. He hadn't touched the system since delegating it to Laura. Alan Rivers, the young technician, jumped when he saw him. "Mr. Walker, "Sir, which footage do you want to retrieve?" "I need the laundry room footage from the 13th of last month around 2 a.m. Alan turned on the computer and rewound the video from the storage drive. After a few minutes, the screen displayed a blurry image of Isabel curled up next to the dryer, holding a thick book, the warm yellow light casting shadows across her tired but focused face. There was no sound, but every gesture was clear, one hand gently flipping pages, the other writing in a notebook. Occasionally, she looked up to listen, then went back to writing. The video ended when Andrew entered and shouted something. Isabel flinched, stood up, and lowered her head. Andrew sat silently. He paused the video on the frame where Isabel had her head down, one hand resting on the notebook. A strange feeling passed through his heart, not anger, but remorse. At the same time, in her rented room, Isabel sat under the dim light. In her hands was a university reapplication form for the upcoming spring semester. Mrs. Margaret walked by and noticed what she was writing. "Trying again?" "Yes. I still want to believe there's a chance. Your mother's probably smiling up there. But make sure you're not standing alone this time." Isabel looked up, her eyes brighter than usual. "This time, I'll walk slower, but stronger." In the following days, Andrew Walker lived in a strange state. It wasn't anger, nor the usual busyness, but a lingering unease, like a thorn hidden beneath silk. He had watched the footage 3 times. And each time, he saw the same thing, a thin young woman studying, quietly, seriously, without any sneaky or deceitful behavior. What weighed on him the most wasn't that he had fired her coldly, but the way Laura had reported it. She studied during work hours, used the mansion's printer, drank your tea. "I warned her several times." Laura's voice echoed in his mind. He sat in his study, poured a glass of red wine, and stared out at the garden where leafless trees swayed in the winter wind. Victor walked in and softly said, "Do you need a ride to the afternoon meeting, sir?" "No. Tell them I have internal matters. I want to review the last 2 months of HR reports. Send me the digital copy by email." Andrew looked him straight in the eye. "I want to check it myself." Victor was slightly surprised but nodded. "I'll send it right away." Meanwhile, in the staff quarters of the mansion, the atmosphere was heavy, like invisible dust in the air. Laura had just signed off on 2 more termination decisions, one for Lydia, for inappropriate conduct, and another for Julian, for lack of team interaction. The break room was nearly empty. Claire Nunez sipped from a cup of cold coffee, silently staring at the duty schedule board where her name had been pushed to the night shift. Andrew spent an entire morning reading through all the management department's reports. The descriptions of Isabel's violations were recorded with noticeable intention, used the printer 3 times without permission, sat in the laundry room for 27 minutes during work hours, used the employer's private property, teacup, office books. He flipped to similar entries for other employees. None had such detailed infractions noted. Several cases of late arrivals and early departures weren't even mentioned. He picked up the phone and called Eve Beltran, the head of HR. "I need to ask you something. Did you personally verify the violations reported about Isabel Reyes?" Eve paused for a few seconds, then sighed. "No. All the information came from Laura. I wasn't allowed to view camera footage or speak to other staff." "Who forbade you?" "She said it was your directive." Eve lowered her voice. "I had my doubts, but no proof." Andrew clenched his hand into a fist. "I'll look into this myself." That afternoon, Laura entered the internal meeting room as usual, confident and commanding. Black business dress, red lipstick, eyes cold as ice. "Let's begin staff scheduling for the Lunar New Year holidays. This year, there will be no rotation. Those not on duty will take unpaid leave." A few staff murmured softly. Victor sat at the back, watching her without blinking. Suddenly, the door opened. Andrew stepped in. Everyone stood. Laura smiled. "You're right on time. I was about to present the holiday staffing plan. I need a private word with you, Andrew said, his voice low. Laura nodded and followed him out. They entered the main office. Andrew closed the door but didn't sit. He stood in front of the desk, looking directly at Laura. I reviewed the camera footage from the night Isabel was caught studying. Laura froze, her smile vanished. I thought that issue was already resolved. Resolved based on your report. And now I see, that report was fabricated. I did not fabricate anything, Laura said firmly. She took advantage of trust. I simply told the truth. Don't play with definitions, Andrew said coldly. I also reviewed the violation reports for other staff. The way you detailed Isabel's faults looked like you were building a fake case. What am I supposed to believe? Laura maintained a calm tone. Perhaps you've become too emotional because she seems pitiful. I don't lead with emotion. But I have a sharp sense for deceit. Andrew opened a desk drawer and took out a red folder. This is a copy of an anonymous complaint from a former employee accusing you of cutting break times, threatening termination, and fabricating stories to get rid of Isabel. I've initiated an independent review. Laura's face turned pale. You can't trust some baseless accusation. I will once I have the results. For now, you're suspended from duty effective immediately. Mr. Walker. My decision is final. Leave by 6 p.m. today, Andrew said firmly, his gaze unyielding. Laura clenched her fists and turned to leave, the sound of her heels cutting into the stone floor like blades. Victor was wiping down the car windshield when he saw Laura leaving the mansion, her face pale. He pulled out his phone and sent a text. The mask is starting to crack. Just as you predicted. On the other end, Mr. Jack replied with a single word. Good. That night, Andrew sat alone in his study, holding an old notebook, one that his mother used when she was principal of Santa Monica School. The first page bore her soft handwriting. Teach children to believe that justice is not a concept, but an action. He closed his eyes and placed the notebook down. Isabel Reyes, he whispered. I was wrong. Now it's time to make it right. Meanwhile, Isabel was sitting by the window in her rented room, flipping through the pages of a book. Mrs. Margaret brought up a cup of hot tea. You have a visitor. A visitor? A stranger. Said he wants to thank you for helping him in the park. Isabel stepped out. Standing at the door was a well-dressed woman in her 50s. She smiled. Sorry for coming unannounced. I'm Elise Walker, Mr. Andrews' sister. Isabel's eyes widened. You, what do you need? I didn't come as a member of the Walker family. I came as someone my mother taught, to apologize when you've wronged someone. Isabel stood frozen at the door, stunned by the woman's gentle tone so different from the cold image of the Walker family she once knew. I'm sorry for arriving like this, but I had to come. After everything. May I ask, how did you find where I live? Isabel asked cautiously, clutching her shirt. A friend of mine, Mr. Jack, told me you once returned his wallet without taking a single cent. But more importantly, it was Andrew, who sent me. Isabel's eyes widened further. Mr. Andrew? Yes, Elise nodded. He knows he was wrong, and now, he wants to make it right. Inside the small room, Mrs. Margaret sat listening, her face a mix of doubt and curiosity. When Elise took a seat in the old chair by the desk, Isabel was still stunned. What did he say? She asked. That he wants to apologize. Publicly. And not just with words. Elise placed a thick envelope on the table. Isabel looked down, hesitant, then slowly opened it. Inside were a handwritten letter, a bank card, and a printed document. In the letter, one part read. I, Andrew Walker, formally acknowledge that the decision to dismiss Ms. Isabel Reyes was a serious mistake based on false information. I will publicly apologize and do everything I can to make amends, even knowing I can never return what she lost. Isabel let out a quiet breath. Her eyes suddenly welled up. I never thought this day would actually come. The next morning, headlines appeared across all major newspapers. Billionaire Walker issues public apology for wrongful termination of former housemaid. The Los Angeles Times excerpted part of Andrew's live interview with ABC 7 Los Angeles. I used to think that maintaining discipline was the highest principle. But I forgot that justice is not just firmness, it is also compassion. Isabel Reyes is a young woman with big dreams, and I crushed those dreams cruelly. Today, I apologize. A reporter asked, "Do you have specific plans to make up for the damage?" Andrew responded firmly. I've contacted the University of Los Angeles to provide full tuition and living support for Ms. Reyes. And I'm working with the board to establish a scholarship in my mother's name, Alexandra Walker, for young people who were once denied a chance, just like her. At Los Olas Cafe, Peter was wiping down tables when he heard the TV behind the counter playing a clip of Andrew's statement. He stopped, looked up at the screen. Footage of Isabel appeared, taken from the surveillance video of her studying in the laundry room. Customers in the cafe began to murmur. Someone whispered, "That's the girl, does she work here?" Peter turned to Martin, who was making coffee. "Is this real?" Martin nodded. "It is. That's Isabel Reyes." At the same time, at the Walker estate, Laura stepped out of a taxi in a rush. She was furious. Her phone had been ringing non-stop all morning, with friends, reporters, even family bombarding her about the Isabel story. As she entered the lobby, she was stopped by Victor. "Sorry. Per new instructions, you're not allowed into the work area," Victor said firmly. "I'm Mr. Walker's assistant. Who do you think you are to? You've been suspended. There's an official notice from legal." Victor handed her an envelope. Laura snatched it and tore it open. Inside was an internal investigation order. The reason: abuse of position, fabrication of false reports, and misconduct in personnel management. Laura's eyes widened. "No, that's impossible. Andrew trusts me." Victor's voice dropped. "No one trusts someone who makes up stories forever." Everything came back to that camera footage from that night. Laura stepped back, as if losing her balance. She turned and walked away, clutching the envelope tightly, her lips trembling. That afternoon, Isabel was invited to the University of Los Angeles to sign her admission papers. Joseph Morgan, the Dean of Finance, shook her hand with both of his. "We deeply regret the school previously rejected your application. But now, the Alexandra Walker Scholarship will cover everything: tuition, living expenses, even books." Isabel was speechless. I don't know what to say. Just study hard. Someone will be following your journey closely." He smiled. The scholarship was named after Mrs. Alexandra, who once said, "Those who bravely study through hardship deserve a chance to study in the light." Back at the boarding house, Mrs. Margaret teared up as she saw Isabel holding her student ID. "Your mother would be so proud, you know that." Isabel held her hand. "If it weren't for you, I would have fallen long ago." That evening, Isabel appeared alongside Andrew Walker on a special TV segment about education and fairness. The reporter asked, "Do you think you'll forgive Mr. Andrew?" Isabel hesitated, then looked at Andrew, who nodded silently, as if ready to accept whatever came. "I think, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. But if the one who caused harm is willing to make it right through action, then I'll move forward without resentment." Andrew softly said, "Thank you. For not closing the door, even though I once slammed it in your face." At the estate, employees quietly watched the broadcast. Lydia, who had stayed silent when Isabel was fired, now cried. Claire murmured, "She's really strong. Not everyone survives what she went through." Victor stood up, took out his phone, and typed a message. The sun is rising again. This time, we won't let anyone extinguish it. 1 week after the live interview, the name Isabel Reyes became a new symbol of perseverance against injustice in American society. Social media was flooded with support. Her story made me cry. I once dropped out because of poverty, now I want to go back. Thank God there are still young people who hold on to righteousness in the dark. My daughter said, "Mom, I want to be strong like Isabel." In diners, libraries, and bookstores, people talked about her as a living example. Many came to Las Olas Cafe just to ask, did Isabel Reyes really work here? Peter, the cafe owner, no longer scolded staff for reading during breaks. He even placed a small shelf in the kitchen corner with a sign. Isabel's Study Corner. At the University of Los Angeles, spring orientation unfolded under gentle sunshine. In the campus courtyard, Isabel wore a simple brown coat, standing among the new students with a radiant look in her eyes. She was still thin, her skin pale from sleepless nights, but her smile had never been brighter. The first person to approach her was a curly-haired girl. "You're Isabel Reyes, right?" "I'm Sylvia. I read about you, I admire you so much." Isabel blushed. "I'm just a regular person. But I'm happy to be your friend." Right after, a tall male student walked up. "Sorry, can I shake your hand? I'm Henry, second year. I once dropped out from discouragement, but your story brought me back." Isabel shook his hand, touched. "Thank you for believing that things can change." During the opening ceremony, after the chancellor finished his speech, he invited Andrew Walker to the stage. The auditorium buzzed with whispers. Andrew wore a gray suit, with the Alexandra Walker Foundation pin on his lapel. "Today, I'm not here as a businessman, but as someone who was wrong," he began. "I once thought I understood capability. I believed that anyone who didn't follow the mold didn't deserve a chance. Until I met a girl who got fired for studying in a laundry room, smeared online, rejected from college, and still never gave up." He gestured to the audience, "Isabel Reyes, please come up here." The entire hall stood and applauded. Isabel stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding. Andrew handed her a small wooden box. "This is the scholarship named after my mother, who once taught me that the greatest power is the ability to give someone else a chance." Isabel opened the box. Inside was a silver medal engraved with the words, "For those who continue, never giving up." She took the mic, her voice choked. "I'm not extraordinary. I was just a kid who believed in books, even with an empty stomach. But today, I've learned the greatest lesson: justice isn't dead, it just sometimes arrives late." Hundreds of people applauded, tears streaming down many students' cheeks. At the Los Angeles Civil Court, a preliminary hearing was held regarding Laura Campbell's misconduct, following a petition by the Walker Foundation in collaboration with the legal department. Attorney Ralph Carter, who had once read the Walker family's will, led the internal review team. "We found at least 8 unjust terminations in the past 3 months, Ralph stated. There are also signs of fabricated evidence and employees being coerced to resign voluntarily to avoid investigation." Laura sat in the room, pale-faced, her hair disheveled, clutching her bag strapped tightly. When invited to speak, she said only one thing. "I did it thinking I was maintaining order. But, maybe I went too far." The court had yet to issue a verdict, but the suspension and placement on HR watch list had already taken effect. Laura left the courthouse under the glare of countless cameras, exposed for the first time by the same spotlight she had once used to manipulate others. 1 month later, Andrew invited Isabel to lunch at the Garden Terrace restaurant, a place once reserved for the elite. Isabel wore a pale blue dress, her hair neatly braided, entering with quiet composure. "I want to thank you for giving me the chance to make things right," Andrew said, pouring wine. "And I want to thank you for not hiding your mistakes," Isabel replied with a gentle smile. "I used to think money was power. But looking back," he raised his glass, "I've realized that true power is helping a young person continue dreaming, after the world turned its back on them." On the bulletin board at the University of Los Angeles, a new article was pinned. Isabel Reyes, from laundry room to lecture hall. The piece was shared tens of thousands of times online. Sylvia, her classmate, teased, "Isabel, you should write a book. How not to collapse even after getting kicked to the bottom." Isabel laughed. "That title's too long. Let's call it All It Takes Is One Person to Believe in You." Back at the boarding house, reporters came to interview Mrs. Margaret about the famous college student. She beamed proudly. "That girl never gave up. I saw her study till 2 a.m., then leave for work at 5. She didn't study for grades, she studied to survive." One afternoon in April, Isabel stepped out of her lecture hall after class. The sun was warm, and tree shadows danced across the campus like a painting. She paused at the top of the stairs, watching other students laughing and chatting, then looked up and gently closed her eyes. The sunlight lit her face, no longer sad, no longer shrinking but radiant, confident, and full of hope. Her mother's voice seemed to echo from afar. "Study, even if you're hungry. Even if you're hurting. Because if you don't, who will rewrite the fair part of your life?" She opened her eyes and smiled. Isabel Reyes, once the girl fired in the cold of night, had now stepped into a new future on her own 2 feet. The story of Isabel Reyes is a testament to the power of perseverance and justice. Though treated unfairly, wounded, and forgotten, she held fast to her belief in knowledge and goodness. In a society full of prejudice, sometimes it only takes one brave person to stand up for everything to change. And her story reminds us that those who make mistakes must be willing to make amends through real actions. Justice may come late, but it will come when truth is revealed and hearts are willing to forgive.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.